Today's talk will be about how to create a culture of continuous improvements. Why, in the first place, the question we often ask or we have to explain is why a culture of continuous improvements. And it's all about making smaller changes often rather than doing a big bang project where every 6 months, every 2 years, that is taking everyone energy and sucking our souls. It's much easier in an organization to do small changes often, because then when the day you need to do a big change, it will be much easier because the whole team and everyone is used to changing their ways of working. They're used that there may be things that are changing, the systems are evolving, the processes are changing, the people are going to different departments depending on the business need. So when I talk about continuous improvement, I often like to refer to a model that I absolutely love called the organizational performance model. The title of that is every organization is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. So that means there is an environment, the outside world, and you have your business results, and there's a direct relationship between the environment and your results. How does that work? Your business results is the result of what you are doing and how you do it, which in the OPM model we call the culture. So what we do, how we do it, it's the culture. And what we are saying is that the culture is something that can be designed. Okay, it can be changed using a number of levers. You have different literature having different levers, but I like the six here because they are simple. We can change the processes, we can change how we work, we can change the reward structure. If we pay someone to do something, they will probably do it faster than something they are not paid for. We can change how we make decisions. We can change how we are managing the information, what is the knowledge available to do something. We can change people by training them, by recruiting the right people in the first place. And we can also change the structure of an organization. Okay, if I have several departments that are working together, maybe it's also it's worth considering merging these departments. Or if I want more efficiency, maybe we separate departments into different teams so they can focus and have their own structure, for example, and their own rewards. These pillars are led by your strategy. And this is how we make the connection between the business environment leading to your strategy that you defined as a company, that acting on these organizational design levers, creating a culture, creating the business results. So if you want to change the business results, you need to look at your culture, you need to look at the levers. What we believe in Skore is that most of these things can be understood when you have a better understanding of your processes. Okay, so we believe that a software like Skore is at the heart of an organizational design, because without understanding processes properly, the rest will fall flat. Okay, we can change people, we can do training, we can do a lot of things without understanding the processes, but there will always be something missing. So this is where we see Skore in the world of continuous improvements. Now, when we talk about the culture, we talk about the people. Okay, and there's a number of roles that are absolutely essential into making change happen. And I will go through one by one. The process owner may be typically someone quite high up in the organization, someone who has the mean to allocate. So material need, money, budgets, human need, resources as well, that get the budget to hire people or take consultants to help making changes, but also will be the ultimate validator, the ultimate person approving the change. At the other end of the spectrum, if we start from the bottom, we have the employee. We are expecting them to take active parts in the process of changing the way we work. We will come back to that. And the change champions. The change champion will be probably people like you on the call. You are involved actively into into improving the way we work, into changing systems, or at least leading the way the new systems are deployed, defined, making new processes, documenting them, training them, all the work that needs to be done to make changes. What needs to be taken also very seriously is whatever is in the middle here, the middle management, if I can call it this way. The managers will usually have a great say on how the team will prioritize their work, but we are expecting the manager to be a steward of the change as well. They need to make sure that people have time to do their normal work, to work in the process, as we say, but they also need to make sure that people are given time to work on the processes, okay, to work on these pillars, that it doesn't happen by magic to make changes to these things. And this is very often the manager that can make or break a change. If the process owner will be on board because they want changes, they want to see their processes performing better. Very often employees and champions are very excited about reducing inefficiencies, reducing wastes in the process. So they're all very excited. But if a line manager, middle manager in the middle is just measured on delivering the work, but not improving the processes, this will be hard to make. And again, here I'm talking about one of the pillars. If you remember, it was about the rewards. Is the manager rewarded as well to improve the processes? That's a discussion that needs to happen in many organizations. So don't underestimate the each role, their importance. So let's have a look at what can you do to create a culture of process improvements. And as I said earlier, we are obviously a company doing a process mapping software, but we do believe that in the OPM model, very good understanding of process is at the heart of any change. So there's usually two exercises that will happen around processes: map the current processes and map the future processes. And we will populate these little white boxes here explaining why we do something. So what are we trying to find out when we are mapping an existing process in an organization? So understand current ways of working, understand current ways of working, we'll call them woes. Byproduct of that is aligning or shared understanding. Let's call it like that. Shared understanding. We love using the word shared understanding of current woes. And don't neglect that. I'm happy that it comes first. This may by itself be your first improvement of your business. If you do just that, just the fact of mapping processes with a team, sharing that, or recommended way in Skore is always to do that as a sort of a workshop with at least someone else. Just doing that will create a shared understanding and may result in massive gain of efficiencies just by having mapped the processes. Don't neglect the power of just mapping the process, just being there, sitting there and taking the time to do it. There's an aspect of standardization. So to us, the mapping, there's no real current state. Okay, the as is doesn't really exist, right? It's always, when you're mapping processes, you're always mapping a sort of an as is plus. You're always mapping a sort of an ideal state, because if in an ideal world everyone would do the same process or everyone would have the same understanding, but it's very rarely happens. So we use that to standardize, to understand what should be the standards or what is the baseline on which we are starting to do the work. Mapping a current process can also help us identifying opportunities. Okay, so I can map my process and I'm like, all right, this really needs to change. In this case, we can say, all right, we can flag using maybe the custom fields in Skore is a great way to capture improvement opportunity in Skore. We can do, all right, technology, the application needs more fields, or okay, we can capture that directly in Skore. Identify opportunities to improve the process. So that's what we do with the current process. And to me, I say it again, there is value in just mapping the current process the way we work. When you share that with the team, you walk through that with them, and you will learn something. Everyone will learn how someone else understands the process, how someone else does, or what are they struggling with. Okay, and that's the last box that I wanted to add, is identify wastes also. So opportunities to make something better, but also the waste. You're maybe familiar with the types of waste in lean. Okay, we do something that we shouldn't do, essentially. All right, we are over processing. We are creating a massive report in Excel, but actually nobody uses them. They only use the first 3 columns, and we have 25 columns in our reports, or that could be summarized in a PowerPoint slide instead of sending the raw data. So that's about the current process, and this is there's a big argument to map current processes, or what we call as is plus, because it will always be a little bit of change depart from what we do today. Now, what are we looking at in mapping the future processes? So now I have an idea in my in my process how to change it, and I'm mapping a new process. Okay, we will change the application to do a new purchase order or to approve a new purchase order. Let's map it together. What are we learning from this exercise? So to me, what it's about mapping the future is obviously creating a shared understanding. That's always very important, but maybe with a broader audience as well. Okay, because if you do the change, if it involves the IT department or a software vendor or another team, maybe you need to involve them. To me, one thing is that a lot of improvement opportunities come from the interfaces between teams. So when you have team A handing over job work to a team B, this is the biggest source, or let's say the most obvious source of waste to look for. There's always a misunderstanding and realignment and different expectations. And this is always the first thing I'm looking at. When I look at a process, the first thing I'm doing is looking at the number of handovers, maybe not between roles if they are in the same team, but between the teams. A big part of mapping the future process is to identify the constraints. Okay, understanding what are the constraints to change a process. So again, this only works if you're involving the right people in the teams involved in the change. But people may have a reason to do something in one way or another. Okay, or maybe you have a system that you cannot touch for a while, or a system that will be decommissioned next year. So this year, we focus on something else. So understanding your constraints in which you operate is very, very important. And this is typically where you would get this information from a future process mapping. The last thing is to define precisely. So create the shared understanding, define precisely the new workflows, and so I would say deep dive into the mechanics of the change. Okay, the devil is in the details, and sometimes it's worth deep diving. Okay, how does this workflow work if you're automating your process? What notifications do you want? So you make sure that everyone has a shared understanding and everyone's expectations are set correctly. In Skore, what works very well to capture several levels of information is using the detailed view feature. So the detailed view, I'm creating one here in this process as I'm using Skore to make my presentation on Skore. Create a detailed view, and then I'm in the lower level. You can see here in the breadcrumbs at the top that I'm actually in the lower level, and I can start mapping my process the same way I would do at the level above. So this is a good way to deep dive into the mechanic of change. And let's continue mapping this little process. So you're mapping your future process. Don't share it often. Share small often and with larger audience. Okay, that's very important to show everyone that you're involving, that you're making change. Get their feedback, get them on board. They will give you some very, very valuable information. Okay, they will show you things. Oh, we do this process differently for Switzerland because they're outside of EU, or we do this process this way in this business unit. So maybe there's something to be inspired if you're talking with someone coming from another business unit in your organization. So share often, share small with the large audience. Don't neglect the approval of the change. Okay, so again, maybe depending on the culture of your organization, but get people to be on board, and in particular line management and process owners to approve the change. Okay, they need to be fully behind it, because going against the sponsors of a given project will never work. So get approval early and often, and then make the change happen. So once you do the approval and resources to implement, okay, that's very, very important, is to get the resources to implement that. I have seen many times, we've done workshops, we captured the baseline, we did an amazing future process, we shared with everyone, and then everyone was like, yeah, this is the right way, but we needed a software development budget to make that happen. And when we reached this stage, boom, nothing, never came. So all the work was basically a big waste of time and opportunity for everyone, because in the end, never had the resources to get the software supplier to make the changes. So what a shame. So resources allocated, and then communicate. Okay, so that's very important, to constantly talk about the change, prioritize them, make them in different phases so that people have this feeling. If I come back to this top level, we have this feeling of seeing gradual changes done in the organization, which will by itself probably steer more people in proposing changes and steer, to create this culture of, okay, in this organization, things can change for the better. And we can focus on our work and not go against our old system or old processes or old ways of working that are completely out of date from the current practices. So this cycle here from mapping processes, mapping future can go, and this is up to you to make it go as fast as you want. This can be, this whole thing can be done in a week, all right? It can be done in a day, but small process, at some point you will run out of very small changes, right? But it can be done in a week to have, when you have the right resources that are on board, when the line management is really helping you to focus in the work, right? Don't forget the day job. Don't forget about delivering what needs to be done for the business to operate and make money, but also to work on the process. How much time do you need? If you do it often, you don't need that much. The problem with big changes is that they will require much more resources than if they were made as small changes over time, once in a while. And yeah, big bang change just don't work. Sometimes it's necessary, but most of the time it's not. Most of the time, big bang changes could have been a succession of small changes that would probably have delivered 10 times the value much earlier, rather than an hypothetical mega business case that had to be approved by the CEO because the number was so big. So that's my arguments for creating a culture of improvements. Wonderful. I hope you learned something. I hope we'll see you again. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see you soon.